I'm joined by Scrump, who is here with me to do some baking. So what are we baking, Scrump?
We're baking real sourdough bread.
Yay. So I fed our sourdough starter earlier today, and you can see that it's more than doubled.
That's where it was when we fed it. And it's right there now.
Yes, so it is definitely time to use this. And so we are going to use our trusty food scale for all of our measuring because it's more accurate when you know it by weight as opposed to just your measuring cups. So our first ingredient is 500 grams of bread flour.
Okay. If the food scale wants to wake up.
Food scale's been a little temperamental lately, but it's still a good way to make things. Scrump is always in the kitchen with me. She's been baking and cooking with me since she was a toddler, and we had a smaller stand for her. And now she's a big kid and she does a lot of the work, and I just get to stand and talk, or I get to gather ingredients and have them ready for her. We're at 346 grams. 490, so just a little bit more. One more gram. It settled to 500.
Yes.
So the next thing we're gonna add is 10 grams of salt. So I have just regular old kosher salt. I'm just gonna shake it in the bowl till I see that we've got 10 grams. And we're good. Then we need 350 grams of water. And I'm gonna zero out my food scale here. And I'm gonna let Scrump add the water. And you add water slowly and let it catch up because water is much heavier than some of the other ingredients.
How much do we need?
350 grams. While you're doing that, I'm gonna grab a spoon to get our starter out of the jar. And the recipe we are using is from the Pantry Mama. It's her easy sourdough recipe. So this is the one that has been working well for me since I'm still new to sourdough. I haven't done too much experimenting, but this one always seems to come out really good for us. And then we need 50 grams of active and bubbly starter, which we definitely have active and bubbly starter. Good. And that's all you need to make sourdough. 4 ingredients, and I'm gonna let Scrump start mixing this up. And the first phase of sourdough is the autolyze, where you get all of your flour hydrated. So we're gonna mix it up till it's just barely pulled together. Then we're gonna let it sit for an hour, and then we'll come back and we will form the dough and then start the stretch and fold process.
Formed the ingredients into a barely held together shaggy dough.
Yes, so it's barely together, but it is still what it's supposed to look like. And we're just gonna pop a lid on it, and we're gonna let this sit on the counter for about an hour, and then we'll check back in. And I like to use a glass bowl or a clear bowl for sourdough so that I can check on the dough and I can see how it's rising and how the bubbles are forming as it's fermenting during the bulk ferment stage. But that's a little ways down the timeline. So we'll check back in with you in a little bit. So it's done with the autolyze. You can see that it's absorbed a lot of the water. And so now it's time to start to shape it up. And one of the first things, we're gonna do a series of stretch and folds, which helps give it structure and develop the gluten in it. So you basically grab the dough and you pull it up, you stretch it and fold it over itself. Turn it quarter of the bowl turn.
Doesn't matter clockwise or counterclockwise.
Just keep going the same direction each way. And I need to get a little dish of water because the dough is very sticky because it is very well hydrated. And so we're just...
You allow this water.
Okay, thank you, kiddo. And we are just gonna keep stretching and folding until a nice dough ball forms. This is probably gonna take about 20 to 30 stretch and folds. And just keep, I'm turning it clockwise because that's what just works for me. And Scrump is getting me some water so that my hands stop sticking to the dough. So you can see getting some dough there. And then I'm gonna let her do a stretch and fold here. So we're gonna turn it. Oh, no.
I didn't find an open container.
Okay. So, hold on. Here. You do a stretch and fold. So I just did that one. So you're gonna pull it from that side and pull it up.
Sticky. Feels like slime. What it does.
Okay. So you don't want to use flour because you don't want to add any extra to the thing, your dough. And so what you do is you have a little dish, you dip your fingertips in, pull it in, and you stretch and fold. And we're going to keep doing this till we get a nice dough ball. Yes. And then once this is formed into a nice dough ball, we're going to let it sit for 30 minutes. And then over the course of the next 2 hours, we're gonna do 4 to 6 stretch and folds. Okay, so we've finished forming our dough and it's very kind of loosely formed and her hands are still wet from rinsing, but we're gonna let this sit for 30 minutes and then we're gonna start our series of stretch and folds. And like I said, we'll do those over the course of 2 hours, 4 to 6 stretch and folds. We'll just check the dough and see what it's like.
It's been roughly 30 minutes, probably more.
A little bit more. We had to eat dinner. We had some delicious cheeseburgers grilled by Captain and Fair. So now it's time to do the first of our stretch and folds. And the reason we do stretch and fold is to develop the gluten, which gives structure to your sourdough bread.
Yep, you don't want your sourdough bread to be flopping around like a towel in the wind.
Well, it won't turn into sourdough bread. You just have to stick it in a loaf pan and break it at that point.
Oh.
So I moisten my fingers and I'm gonna start pulling it up and folding it over itself. Turn it 90 degrees. And Scrump is doing the next stretch and fold. And she's gonna fold it over. I'm gonna bring it around. And I put a silicone trivet underneath just to keep the bowl from sliding around.
This is fun.
And so then we fold it over. And so our first series of stretch and folds are done and loaf form. And we're going to do this about 4 to 6 times over the next 2 hours. I'm gonna set a timer for about 20 to 25 minutes. We'll do another series of stretch and folds. And when I'm about to start the bulk ferment, we'll show you what it looks like. I don't know if it's gonna take 4 times or 6 times. We just have to see how the dough is behaving today. So we'll see you when we're ready to start the bulk ferment.
Yep.
Okay, so we have completed 4 stretch and folds and we're gonna do one last stretch and fold. So this is number 5. So again, you grab your dough from the far side, you stretch it up and fold it over. Now let Scrump do the next one.
It doesn't feel like slime anymore.
No. I'm gonna help you here just so we can get a good stretch on it. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Again, you see we keep turning the bowl 90 degrees. And then the last stretch and fold.
Let me do it.
Okay. Okay, let's put it back in the bowl. Okay. So get the stretch and fold over. And so now our dough is in a good ball. It's been shaped enough, and so we're going to leave it for the bulk ferment, and we're going to do an overnight ferment. And the bulk ferment is your first rise, and this is when your sourdough starter helps your dough rise. In the morning, when we get ready to put it in the fridge for the cold ferment, the dough will have doubled in size, it will be rounded on top, and we'll see some great bubbles in it. So we'll check back with you bright and early tomorrow morning. Well, good morning. It has been probably about 9 hours since we left the dough to ferment. And as you can see, it has doubled in size. It's a little sticky, but I think we're still gonna be able to work with it. There's some good bubbles in there. So I'm going to put some rice flour on the counter. And you use rice flour because you don't want to add any more gluten or anything like that to your dough. And then I have a bowl with a tea towel dusted with rice flour prepared to use. And I'm just gonna grab a dough scraper to get my dough out of the bowl. Smell the sourdough in this, so most of the magic has happened and it's gotten a good sourdough scent to it. And so I just kind of work the dough to get it into a good ball. You can see some nice bubbles in here. I'm just trying to get the smooth side, smooth it out. I still haven't mastered this part yet. I'm still pretty new at sourdough, but one of these, I get this in here. This in the bowl. The next step is to put it in the refrigerator for at least 6 hours, but most likely it'll be after dinner tonight when we bake our bread. So Scrump will join me again tonight when it's time to bake. So we are back and it's time to bake our bread. And we just pulled it out of the refrigerator. It has been in there since about 6:15 this morning, and it's now about 7:45 in the evening. So it's been in there for about 13 hours. And why do we do a cold ferment, Scrump?
We do a cold ferment to enhance the flavor of your sourdough bread.
Right.
Or else it'll kind of taste like cardboard.
Well, it tastes like cardboard, but it gets that nice signature sourdough flavor. And it also allows you to bake it when you're ready. So I proofed it, did my cold ferment in a bowl lined with a tea towel, and I'm just gonna dump it out onto a sheet of parchment paper.
Yep.
So we have a nice smooth dough ball, which I'm gonna bring it so you can kind of see a little bit better there. And I'm going to score the bread.
The scoring helps gas as kind of escape the loaf in a controlled way during baking. And if you're baking with kids, adults do this part. It's very dangerous.
Yes, the bread lame is very sharp, and I did one cross cut, a deeper cut, and then I'm doing a few kind of artistic little cuts along the side. But like Scrump said, it allows gas to escape in a controlled manner because it will kind of go out wherever it finds a weak point, and we want to make a pretty loaf, or as pretty loaf as we can get. And now I'm going to grab our Dutch oven that has been in a preheating oven at 450 degrees. Again, this is a step for grown-ups, and why is that?
Because 450 degrees for how long?
It's been in there for about 20 minutes.
450 degrees for about 20 minutes. That could easily burn your fingers off, kids. And also, another thing about scoring the bread is that if it finds a weak point, it can kind of like blow out the side and kind of make it look weird, really, really weird. Like,
okay. And so Scrump is staying kind of out of the way of our super hot cast iron Dutch oven. And I'm just gonna trim the excess parchment paper. And our sourdough loaf is ready to bake. And I'm going to put it in a 350 degree oven for 30 minutes to bake covered. Then we'll drop the temperature down to 410, uncover it, and bake it another 15 minutes or so, just until it has a nice golden crust and it's delicious and ready to bake. Or not ready to bake, ready to take out and let cool.
Mom, you said a 350, then 410. Is it supposed to be in the 400 or the 300?
It's supposed to be 450. Thank you for catching that. So I'm just gonna turn the timer to 30 minutes. And we'll be back at the end of the bake time.
Yep. Sorry we couldn't show you the bread coming directly out of the oven because we had technical difficulties.
Yes, had to get some more space on my phone video reel before we could film our bread. But we are back and we have a beautiful loaf of sourdough bread to show you. Yep. So we're gonna turn the camera around so you can see. Here is our loaf of beautiful sourdough bread. You can see we've got this nice big opening from our main slit with a good, nicely developed sourdough ear, that little crusty part that rises up, and some of our little artistic slits. You can see that. So we have some nice, yummy, crusty bread. And Scrump, what do you say about having some toasted sourdough bread and eggs from your chickens for breakfast tomorrow?
Yay!
Sounds like a good plan?
Yep, and can the sourdough bread hear us?
I don't think the bread can hear us.
Oh, because you said ear. I thought it could hear us because ear's here.
No, it's just the way that part rises up.
Oh.
Thank you for joining me and Scrump as we bake sourdough bread. I know it's been a process. It's taken us about 28 hours to get here, and we're gonna let this bread cool on the rack overnight, and then we'll cut into it tomorrow morning for breakfast. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
And make sure to check out Captain Unfair and Scrump to see more with Scrump and to see the sillies that me and Captain Unfair do.
That is a great channel. I highly recommend them. See y'all next time.